Welcome to the Uncontested Podcast, talking Oklahoma City Thunder basketball and the wider NBA.
Sam Presti said, lower the hatch, load up the cannon, and get the tank out rolling.
Catch new episodes after each Thunder game and every Sunday night.
This is a house of learning doctors.
Follow the Uncontested on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube to catch new content as it drops.
I mean, a cat and a dog connected together?
This is Lou Dort. You're listening to the Uncontested.
What is up? Welcome to the Poku-Tested Podcast. I had to throw it in there.
Well done.
We are part of the Blue Wire Podcast Network, also the official podcast of boomtownhoops.com, coming to you live tonight from YouTube, Twitter, Facebook. So if you guys are tuning in live, hop in that chat room, start dropping questions, react to the crazy stuff that Nick's going to say this episode. Have a blast. We will have a section here coming up where we will answer all of your questions from the chat, so make sure you get in there. If you're listening to the podcast version, thank you so much for checking us out. Make sure you drop that 5-star rating. We've got a handful of new ones up. I read them this week, and it made my heart warm. So continue to do that. You are slowly curing my depression, so I appreciate it. I'm your host for the evening, Jacob Miffin. As already mentioned, we have Nick Crane along for the ride tonight.
Hello, hello.
Taylor Peterson in his Dortal Combat shirt.
Represent.
Hey, have you watched the movie already, Taylor?
I haven't, and I'm like really excited to.
It's pretty cool. It's a lot of gore. I'm into
That's
it.
what I've heard, which is I love it. I love it. I might need to just pull an all-nighter and after the podcast.
There you go. Do it.
Power
We've
through.
also got Justin Peabody here.
Hello, everybody. I feel like I owe anyone that attempted to listen to my post-game podcast an apology. So it was just disaster all around. Somehow my computer just didn't decide to pick up my microphone, so the whole thing is just bad audio. But if you were like really on top of things and listened to it right after I uploaded it, you also got the completely unedited raw audio by accident, which involved like 2 minutes of me clearing my throat and like mumbling to myself. So sorry if you missed that. Good news is the edited version is currently live, so go check that out. It's a much more pleasant experience.
I wish that Justin would have warmed up his vocal cords like no. Red
that leather, yellow leather.
You just hear him getting the kids in trouble.
Turn that stuff down. I'm trying to podcast.
Shut
up. Would have been incredible.
Thankfully, none of that.
Yeah. Instead, we just get Justin clearing his throat. So,
yeah.
All right, guys. Well, it's this
This
is an interesting time for us to be podcasting about the Oklahoma City Thunder. Ever since we started the Uncontested, it's always been podcasting about, these guys' performances and this win streak and the playoff push, and none of that is applicable right now. But we're still going to find a silver lining here. Although the Thunder are now at, 13 straight losses?
13 straight.
They have a chance to tie the franchise record Monday night at 14 straight and then break the franchise record Tuesday night on the second night of a back-to-back. They have the Philadelphia 76ers and the Boston Celtics coming up. But I want to look back at this previous 2 weeks if you want. And I want to ask you guys, throughout all the losing, all the lineups where we don't even know half the people that are on the dadgum court, what are the major takeaways positively from the past 2 weeks? It can be a player, it can be something with the coaches, it can be some sort of wrinkle in the offense. I know we're kind of scratching the bottom of the barrel here because we're watching lots of 20-point losses. But what is something positive that you've taken away from the past 2 weeks of Thunder basketball?
Well, just really quick, Silver on the stream says it's actually a win streak, and he is pretty spot on there.
Well said. Well said.
There's your first positive.
Yep, it's all about perspective, man. It's all about perspective. I love it. Nick, you keep looking like you're about to talk in that mic. What's your positive?
I'll go player here. Teo. Not only has he been available, which is the best ability, as we all know, since
March 24th, when we got the news of both Al Horford and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander not going to be with the team and then not playing because of injury, he's actually got the most games played with 17, and in turn, the most points on the team by like a mile. So if you're just looking at who's been awesome over the course of this losing streak, I know that extends past 13. I think it's one win in the past 16 or so since that news dropped.
Against the Raptors was that last win.
Yep, he's got the
Raptors.
most points by a mile.
Yeah,
I like
Teo's been really solid. I think we talk about it all the time, but just his composure, I think, is what really stands out to me. But you go through a stretch. Think about it. You're a rookie playing in the NBA. You come from overseas, and your first season is this season. Like, I think that'd be really easy to affect you, but his steadiness has really stood out to me amongst all those losses. He's come out every night and put in the work. It doesn't look like he's checked out, which is great.
Over the 13-game losing streak, Teo is averaging 14 points, nearly 14 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists a game. The shooting numbers aren't pretty, only 36% from the floor, 31% from 3 on 5 attempts a game.
Yep.
Guys, let me tell you something. Looking at the past 13, we got some guys that like to shoot the dadgum basketball. What is this? 5 guys? Yeah, 5 guys averaging over 5 3-point attempts a game. Ty Jerome, Alexei Pokashevsky, Teo Maladone, Darius Baisley, and Luguentz Dort, all averaging over 5 3-point attempts a game.
That's
pretty
great stat.
Barring something crazy happening, Teo's probably going to start 45 plus games this year. Raise your hand if you thought that was going to happen when he got drafted.
No way.
I have a preseason prediction in our bet podcast that we did. Our listeners can go back and listen. And I said by the time the season was over, I think I said after All-Star break, but we'll have to go back and confirm that Teo Maladone would be the starting point guard, starting alongside Shai, and would finish the season that way. So I was basically right if you just don't take into consideration the fact that Shai hasn't really played much recently, but he's been starting nonetheless. So there we go.
Taylor, have you ever heard the phrase "even a broke clock is right twice a day"?
And even a blind squirrel finds a nut. Yes.
Yeah, that one makes me a little more uncomfortable. So
no, so I did the same thing, Jacob. While you guys were talking, I pulled up Teo as well as a couple other players that I was going to mention as well for this segment. Their past 13 games during this losing streak. But I think the thing that for Teo, something that I've harped on quite a bit on this podcast throughout the season, obviously, I really liked what Justin said. And even with his audio, he still made some great points, so go listen to it. But one thing that you said, Justin, that I listened to while I was mowing the lawn today, you mentioned Teo's poise. It's almost robotic, but like not in the bad way, right? You hear about players who are robotic and like, especially with their like shooting motion or just so methodical that like they just are making mistakes because they're so predictable. Teo's not so much that way as much as he is just like you said, somebody like Russell Westbrook can be chirping at him the whole game. It's not going to affect him. So because of that,
I have a question about that, Taylor. Teo is very emotionless on the basketball court, right? He never gets hyped up. He never gets into the trash talking. Like we've noted that. We've talked about that. It's also his first season coming from EuroLeague.
True.
Do you think he is the same way 3 years from now?
Yeah, I do. I think it's just his personality.
Oh, interesting. I think he's going to be maybe not a trash talker, but I bet he's showing emotion and constantly getting at the refs in 3 years. I think I feel like we see this a lot where like guys come in the league and appear fairly mild mannered, and we always applaud that. And then by year 3 or 4, they're bitching at the refs. They're throwing tantrums. I wouldn't be surprised. Now, Teo does seem like the guy that like wouldn't be like that, but I think we say that about a lot of guys over time. That's a good point.
He's very, very soft spoken. Like you'd have to crank up his microphone if he was a podcast.
I just see like his personality off the court and think that would just kind of be out of character maybe for him. As he's definitely a competitor. You can see the seriousness on his face when he's competing. But all that to say, Justin mentioned his robotic nature, just his poise essentially is what you were getting at, Justin. So for Jacob to have that stat out there, that even with these injuries and during this losing streak, he's putting up 5 3-point attempts per game. He's I have this pulled up. Field goal attempts, 12.4 field goal attempts in the past 13 games. He's being more aggressive. And that's something that I had asked for and said that I wanted to see more of from Teo here probably about a month ago. It's been great to see him do that when given the opportunity, even if he's not necessarily making as many of those as he could be, or I don't even think you should say he should be. It's just great to see him, I think, putting up those attempts and being more aggressive. Anybody have anything?
I'm gonna go with
who's next?
I'm gonna go with Bays. I mentioned this on the post game pod as well. Baisley's recent stretch of play has been really impressive. Really, since you can almost go all the way back to when he returned from injury. Give him a little bit to settle in, but going backwards, starting with last night's game, scoring output from Bays: 20, 26, 26, 16, 19, 22. That's a really solid stretch from Baisley. That's showing some of the aggressiveness that we saw from him in the bubble that we didn't really see in the rest of the season thus far. The previous high in the entire rest of the season before his injury was 22 points, and that happened once. He also hit 21 once.
Was that 22 against the Lakers?
Do
you have it pulled up?
The Nuggets.
I don't remember that.
The Lakers was 21. So you're close. But just showing that aggressiveness. And I think that what we're seeing is, maybe the best word to describe Bays is like a little bit streaky. When you look through his game logs, you kind of see 3 or 4 or 5 good games in a row. You see 2 or 3 not great games in a row. And right now we're sitting at 6 games that are good, 6 good Bays games. I think I'll be interested to see, how long does this wave last for Baisley? Is it, now maybe he's fully healthy. Now he's feeling more confident. He has a stronger role with the way that the roster is shaking out. Is he going to be able to sustain that through the end of the season? If so, I think that's super encouraging for Baisley as we head into year 3 for him versus, if it continues to be a bit of a roller coaster, if he rattles off 3 or 4 bad games and then has some good games again to end out the season, I think that'll leave some more question marks for Bays.
So Justin, to your point, I have the last 13 as well. This is one I actually have prepped before the podcast for Baisley, his stats. He's averaging 19 points, to your point, 16 attempts, averaging 7 made field goals, shooting 43% from the field overall. Here's the one that also adds up. Only 28% from 3 on basically 6
great.
attempts.
Hasn't been efficient.
And we've absolutely have seen that. But his rebounds are there. He's averaging about 7 rebounds a game, almost 2 assists. The plus minuses are really funny to look at the last 13 games for all these players because they're all just ridiculously negative, which makes sense. But to your point, he's absolutely being more aggressive. That's something that Jacob's talked a lot about here over the past couple of weeks. And it's been great to see from Baisley as well, just like Teo. And he's really, it's kind of like you said, again, on your post game that I listened to earlier, it's fresh in my mind, Justin. You mentioned him being a very methodical player. So if he's shooting poorly, his body language is, he kind of wears his heart on his sleeve. He displays it on the court. But when he's playing well, it makes sense that he would string together 3, 4, 5. At this point, almost 13 games of pretty solid and consistent games from him, I think, on both ends of the floor. So that's something to monitor, I think, moving forward. I think kind of a guy like Chris Paul last season was probably really good for him in the locker room. I hope somebody like maybe Al Horford, Dagnall, whoever it is, I hope they can kind of be that for him moving forward, because if he can keep his head steady, level, I think that's going to be a really big thing for Baisley moving forward in his development.
How about the rebounding just of the team? They've been a top 10 rebounding team all year. Over the last, 15, 16 games or so, top 3 in rebounding, number 1 in offensive rebounding. I think it speaks a lot to I like to call them the silent duo of Moses Brown and Tony Bradley. They don't pop off the stat sheet with, 20, 30 points apiece, but they are on the glass. Every single night, regardless of who Oklahoma City plays, they're probably going to win the battle on the glass.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Going back to Baisley real quick, if you look at the last 6, it's 24% from the 3-point line. We talked about how good of a shooter he was in the bubble, and how what he really needed to do was learn how to finish at the rim. And I feel like we've flip-flopped since the injury. He is now much more aggressive at the rim. He's probably dunked the ball more in this 13-game loss than he had like all last season, right?
Yep.
But it's now the 3-point shot isn't going in, right? And so that becomes even more of an issue. You hope at some point he can put the two together and really string some stuff together. Justin, like you mentioned, can he make a run and continue this positive play? But Nick, I wanted to ask you, I feel like you're the perfect candidate to ask this question. Baisley over the last 6 is averaging 21.5 points on a total of 42% from the field. Is this the someone's got to score points on a bad team stat, or are we actually seeing something from Baisley?
I think both. I mean, his efficiency has been pretty bad. And I think a lot of it's skewed too because the 26-point game, one of the two 26-point games was on 25 shots. That's going to skew a 6-game sample size in general. So a lot of it's been inefficient. Someone's got to score. You would hope if a guy shoots 25 times, he's going to score 40. Didn't happen. But I still think the flashes of like what he's shown, we've seen the jumper fall late last season. We've seen around the rim fall more recently here in the last handful of games. Maybe he puts it together next year. I mean, it's promising nonetheless.
Yeah, I feel like not only are the shots at the rim going in, but it's just the aggressiveness going at the rim, right? It's no longer little soft finishes. It's how many times has he tried to put somebody on a poster the past week, right?
Yes.
That's what's encouraging to me. And Daignault specifically talked about his defense as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, multiple times with Russ and Karis LeVert in the Indiana game. I think too, it's a little bit of an adjustment for Bays. He was always playing out of position. They had him playing a lot of center and then even starting at power forward. I think with the like Poku in the mix and some of these other kind of interesting pieces, he's played a little bit more of like a true 3 recently. Therefore, he's got smaller guys guarding him. And I think that has sparked his willingness to try to attack the rim as well. He's got littler guys on him than he's used to.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's all positive signs for Baisley in terms of his approach to the game. Like you said, the easiest thing to point at is you'd like to see him make more baskets, but that's not necessarily something that you can just like force. I wonder how much of that is just continued recovery from a fractured scapula. I'm not sure what it feels like to shoot a 3-ball with a recently repaired scapula. I can't imagine it feels super great. But as long as he's continuing to go for it and try to get shots and to get his own shot, and like you said, Jacob, the aggressiveness, going to the basket, being locked in on defense, all those things are things that Bays can control. Can't necessarily control whether the ball goes in or out of the basket. So as long as he's taking care of what he can, I'm encouraged by what we've seen.
And that's a good point. I like that. Also, I can't be the only one that whenever I hear scapula, I think spatula, right?
Yes, I do that every time.
Don't tell me it's not only me.
Every
Okay,
time.
thank
Fractured spatula.
A fractured spatula. Okay, the last guy I think we touch on before we're done with the positives from the past 2 weeks. We've got to talk about him.
Please. Thank you.
Oh, God, no. I was going to Alexei Pokushevsky.
Boo.
Lou Dort's been awesome. Don't get me wrong.
Awesome.
Hadn't played much.
But I want to talk about Poku.
Yes.
Because if there is one person I would go to war for in this world, it's not my mother. It's not my fiance. It's Alexei Pokushevsky.
I hope I hear screams in the other room now.
Some of the stuff this guy does, man, like, I don't know. Just it feels like every game I'm seeing something from Poku that tells me, like, after he gets a little more experience, gets a little bit older, put some weight on, like, this guy's going to be a freaking problem. 6 blocks in a game recently. Just some of the passes he's made. Maybe my favorite one was at the Toronto game, I believe, where he only played 5 minutes because he had a non-COVID related illness, which basically means he had to poop real bad. He had a play early on in that
second COVID shot, 1 to 2,
where he looked off. He looked to the top of the key and threw a lefty no-look bullet pass all the way across the court into the shooting pocket of Lou Dort. And it's just like, holy crap, man! Like, this kid, The passing ability is just off the freaking charts. He almost has Shea-like finishes at the rim where they're very unorthodox, super long, like scoop shots, same foot, same hand, wrong side of the rim finishes. It's so unique. People want to make like the KD comparison sometimes. I don't know who you compare him to just because he does stuff like so uniquely.
I don't think his game reminds me of this guy, but his stat lines do. Andre Karolinko.
Interesting.
That is
another tall white European. I like it, Nick. No, he's just the stuff he does, man. Like, I mean, and we've all watched like the video that Kevin O'Connor did. If you haven't already, you need to go listen to Kevin O'Connor and Tyler Parker on the Ringer U podcast, where friend of the pod, Tyler Parker, just gushes about Poku for like an hour, and it's incredible. I don't know, like, what is this kid's ceiling? Does he come back next year and average like 15, 6, and 6?
He absolutely
and
could.
Like 2 blocks, because like
we
I'm
also
not saying
don't know.
He won't do it.
We also have no idea. That's what's so amazing. Like, to your point, I think his. I'm trying to remember. I was talking with one of you about this. One of you guys came on my my latest posting pod I did here about a week ago, and one of the things that I mentioned is that it seems to me that his IQ, the game's slowing down for him, and he's using his body to his advantage. He's learning how to manipulate defenders. To that point, Jacob, I mean, I think there was a play last week where he split like 3 different defenders, used his length to his advantage, was able to do some crazy wild scoop shot and finish around the rim. But we're starting to see that since then. We've seen that regularly. We saw that like in Friday's game. His ability to finish at the rim and use his length to his advantage. There's nobody who can stop that. The past 13 games, he's averaging 10 points, basically 11 points, 10.8 points on 4 field goals made. Only shooting 36.6% from the field. There's so much room for improvement.
The eye test.
So much room for improvement, but the confidence is there. And that's what makes me so excited. Also, just like his mistakes are so fun also. Like, it just has some of the most wild, ridiculous passes or turnovers that just make you giggle. And then like the very next play, he'll come down and swat the, what off somebody. I mean, it's amazing. You never know what you're going to get with Poku.
It's so much fun. Also, the last 6 games, he is shooting 9.5% from 3.
Woo! What was that number?
9.5% from 3 in his past 6.
6
again, small sample size.
If he averages 16 points next year, as you hypothesized, it'll be on 35 shots.
Yeah, if Poku's averaging 16 a game next year, it means the draft did not go well because he's still taking that many shots.
That is
touche.
Fair.
I'm just saying, I'm not putting a lid on this kid. Like, just the stuff that he can do is very impressive.
I think that's the thing that is, I don't know if it's not talked about as much, but so we've heard a lot about the bad side of tanking. You're stunting development. Shea, you're taking Shea off the court. You're taking Lou off the court more than he would be. You're stunting those guys. The flip side of that is
false, by the way, but continue.
I'm on the same page. But the flip side of that's not as talked about is like the experience for Poku, like, is so vastly different than it would be in any other season for him. You look back through his game log, like, take out the weird games where he had an illness or whatever, like 25 minutes, 30, 28, 27, 33, 31, 30, 32. Like, he's regularly playing over 30 minutes a night. That does not happen on a non-tanking team.
You know what that reminds me of is someone I was watching the other night and was like, I don't see them very often, who I think we all probably think has a similar like untapped potential as Poku. Bol averages 5 minutes a game. Like,
exactly.
When is he going to get experience and like get the chance?
On a team like the Thunder, he'd be doing it. That's what's so strange. They're both so like close in age and close in experience that like those are kind of the two you really can compare to each other.
That's a perfect comparison. And I think that illustrates like Poku's development is going to look so vastly different because he's on the Thunder and not the Nuggets.
Right.
That, I mean, think back through how many prospects have the Thunder had through the KD and Rush years that never really got much exposure, and then they got traded, and then they got traded, and then traded, and then traded, and then they're out of the league. And I'm not saying that's not out of the realm of possibilities for somebody like Poku. Like, who knows? Anything's on the table. He's still a rookie. But I think playing 30 minutes a night in the NBA after coming from the Greek second league Like that's the development you want. Like stats, who cares? The stats are whatever, but the minutes he's logging against NBA competition is going to be so crucial for him moving forward.
Agreed.
Would I
And
like to see Shea out there? Sure. But I think that, getting this for guys, not just Poku either, guys like Roby, guys like Maladone, who we just talked about, like they're getting so much more real game experience, and they may not be winning, but I think that experience is still worth something.
Definitely. And I wanted to ask you that, guys, this, what we've seen from Poku take like over the last 20 games, let's just say since he came back from the G League bubble. Okay. Like if he didn't play that well coming back from the G League bubble, we'd all be like, oh, okay. Again, 19-year-old coming from the Greek B League. This is what we expected. Like if you were seeing what you're seeing now from Poku this time next year, I think we'd all be saying,
we'd be happy.
There might be something there, right? Maybe he could become something. And like, it feels like it's coming like a year early, actually, to me. And so I'm super excited to see, especially when you consider the draft was late this past year. Poku basically got drafted out of that. God, I love the dude, but the house, whenever ESPN showed him at his home, that's just some straight Soviet block bullshit.
It was straight up a Borat movie.
Yeah. He it looked straight like Mother Russia. I got to go outside and milk the cow, LeBron James kind of stuff, like just wild. But
that's amazing.
He got drafted, got on a plane, came to America, quarantined, and then bam, is in training camp, right? Where like this year, he's going to get a full off season where he is with NBA coaches who are specifically working on certain parts of his game with him, getting him on a meal plan. Because I talked about this on a post game a while back. Like a guy like Poku, Justin, playing 30 plus minutes a game. I mean, this dude probably has to eat like 5,000 calories a day to maintain weight now.
Right.
There's no way that he's putting on muscle and putting on weight right now just because of how much he's burning in an NBA game. So you get him in the off season. NBA coaches are specifically focusing on things for his game. He has a regimented plan. He's got a diet plan. He's got a lifting plan.
Exactly.
He's got all this stuff. I think this is why you see guys come out year number 2 and really make a jump. I'm excited to see what Poku looks like.
Where does he go as a 19-year-old in this draft? If you were to go backwards,
so if he had this season overseas,
no, if you could take this season and knowing what he could be, where would you take him in the 2021 draft? Top 10, easy.
I think he's top 10.
Yeah, that's amazing.
I think he's lottery for sure, right?
That just kind of resonated with me. That's a great point.
It's
a great point.
It's
okay, give me 10 seconds. I know we're at 28 minutes here. We need to move on. I understand that. Give me 10 seconds. Lugens Dort, 3 games, okay, of 20 plus points. He hit 18 on Friday night's game against the Pistons. But per the last 13 games, 26 points on 9 made field goals, shooting 48.4% from the floor, 47.4% from 3 on almost 8 attempts from 3. Guys, I was the Russell Westbrook guy early on when it came to the Russ, not versus KD, but Russ and KD. Russ is my favorite player. I'm doing it now on this podcast. Lou Dort is my favorite player on the Oklahoma City Thunder over Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Thank you. We can move on.
That was the most concise Taylor's ever been.
I think so. Yeah.
Same amount of words. But
also, I think we got to give Taylor this before we move on.
I'm sweating. You tell me that motherfucker ain't hot, you a live motherfucker.
My friend Elijah is only here for the Lou Dort content. I have a fan.
Will you still be
Elijah.
a fan when he comes off the bench in 3 years?
Dare.
Dang, bro.
He's impressive, man.
If that happens, he'll get traded to the Houston Rockets and become an MVP, and they get traded to the Brooklyn Nets, and I'll stop.
Let's move on to a guy that mentored Lou Dort last year, Chris Paul. Sam Amick did a big piece in The Athletic, breaking down Chris Paul, his impact on the Phoenix Suns, his career. It's a really, really great article. If you have The Athletic, if you're subscribed, and you have not read that article already, I highly encourage you to go read it. A few nuggets from it, and then I have a question for you guys. The nuggets would be, in it, Chris said he and Shai still talk daily. think that's
Love
a
it.
good sign. OKC, once the Thunder traded for Chris, they met with him out in LA and had a massive PowerPoint put together with all this really in-depth data about Chris and how he goes about playing games and the injury struggles and other point guards who aged really well in the league, and like this huge breakdown of how the Thunder were going to plan out what he was going to do and how they were going to manage his minutes. They did this massive presentation. Chris said, "Yeah, I'm not doing that," which I just thought was funny. Chris already knew with his change in his diet and everything that he was good to go, and damn it, he proved it too. Only missed 2 games last season, so good for him. Chris talked a lot about his mindset coming to OKC and telling the players whenever he got here that he had no intention of forcing his way out, that he was bought in, that he hoops. That's what he does, and that's what he was here to do, which I think just kind of goes on to show kind of the type of leader he was that we talked a lot about last season. Here's the interesting part, though. Philadelphia had a trade lined up for Chris Paul back in October. Chris told Sam Presti specifically he did not want to play on the East Coast and he did not want to play for Daryl Morey. Apparently some bad blood there after Morey told him he would not trade him and then did. So Presti turned down the Philly offer and made a deal with Phoenix. They said the deal came together rather quickly, but it seems like the Thunder maybe got a little bit less for Chris Paul from Phoenix than they maybe could have from Philly, which continues this trend that I wanted to ask you guys about. The Thunder continually finding places for their players where the player wants to go, working with a player rather than just trading a guy, right? We've seen the flip-flop of this with Chris Paul in Houston. I think most recently with JJ Redick in New Orleans getting shipped off to Dallas. And he was very unhappy about that. And apparently the communication between the player and the front office was very poor. So my question for you guys is this the best long-term idea for the Thunder to adopt? Trading guys to locations where they want to go. Obviously, communication is good, but maybe getting less back in trades, but in return, making players and by extension their agents more happy with the Thunder front office and more willing to do business. Is there a line there where you get to doing too much for the player that you're harming the franchise? And what are your overall thoughts on this trend that the Thunder is doing, which we are continually seeing other GMs not do?
I mean, it's kind of a similar argument with the whole that happened around the whole buyout timeframe, right? We have, obviously we talked about LaMarcus Aldridge, and I'm glad that he's doing okay and made the right decision for him. But LaMarcus Aldridge is going to Brooklyn, and Blake Griffin going to Brooklyn, and Andre Drummond going to the Lakers, which honestly has been a huge lifesaver for them with LeBron and AD being out. So it's a similar conversation, I think, where being a small market, Oklahoma City is awesome. There's a ton of great things going on right now. There's a bunch of new things that are popping up around the city. But even then, you're in the middle of the United States. You're not on either coast, which is where a lot of players want to be, especially when you're making that kind of money. Let's just call it how it is. So you have to do these sort of things. You have to run your organization like Presti runs his. If you want to be able to attract players to OKC or even just retain players in OKC. When you're drafting a high caliber player like a Zion or a Cade, they're going to feel more comfortable now, I think, coming here and seeing their rookie contract through and the rookie extension through with an organization like Oklahoma City, because they know Sam Presti's reputation and the reputation of the franchise. And I say all of this because I think, what they did with obviously Russ, PG, but then Chris Paul last offseason, I think that made it a lot better for Al Horford this season. And George Hill, right? So I think that made it a lot better for two players like George Hill and Al Horford this season. Coming to OKC, they weren't like pouting with their head down. I mean, we still see George Hill like commenting on all the guys' like Instagram photos, and everybody talks about how great of a veteran that George Hill was this season. Like, they come into OKC with a positive outlook because I think of how OKC has treated their players in the past.
Yeah, I think Elijah in the chat also mentions Dennis Schroeder.
And Schroeder, that's a great point.
Another great example.
I think, to your point, Taylor, you nailed it. You have to do this if you're a small market, because if you don't, I mean, there's essentially no chance at free agents. We talked about it a little on a recent weekly pod. The chance still isn't great when compared to some of those other big market teams, but like, look at someone like the Knicks, where it kind of, I mean, I'm not saying the Knicks is like a hot destination by any means, but like there's a semblance of like, it doesn't matter what you do as an organization because you're the New York Knicks. The Lakers is probably a better example. Like they pissed down their leg for 3-4 years and then got LeBron and AD to come. Exactly. And like it doesn't matter because they're the Los Angeles Lakers. Oklahoma City doesn't have that luxury. And this may not be enough to land a big free agent, but if you don't do it, you can all but guarantee you're not going to. And so I think that it goes back to the way Presti does everything. I don't think he's doing these things because of, trying to land future free agents in mind. He's doing these things because it's the right way to run a franchise. It's the way he does everything. He's meticulous and methodical and intentional about every single thing he does with the Thunder. And this goes alongside it. Some GMs are not that way. And I think you see that through these interactions. Like, that's just bad communication that JJ Redick wouldn't hear from the GM.
Right.
And then just get shipped. Like that's not even, that has nothing to do with like winning or being a good GM. That's just like being a bad person.
I was going to say being a bad person.
Yes. Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yep. Like if your boss did that, now not apples to apples, but like if your boss just like didn't talk to you for 2 months and then was like, yeah, you're going to a different team at the office or something like that. Like you're not going to get traded to another company, but like, I don't know. Communication is important in everything, not just running a basketball team. So I think that speaks more to, I think just the character overall of some of these guys. Character might be too strong of a word, but just like, the way they carry themselves, and it's very un-Presti-like.
Hey, real quick, Nick, because I know you're about to say something. 2 things on that thought, Justin. Number one, how many times do we hear interviews with players where they say they didn't know they were getting traded until they got a Woj tweet?
Right.
Yes.
Right. All the time. Number 2, I don't think that the Thunder are going to land a big time free agent, but I think doing this type of thing is what gets you a re-signing in a Paul George type deal. Right. I think that's way more likely for the Thunder. Instead of signing a guy in free agency, you trade for a guy and they already have a positive outlook on the franchise and are interested in signing an extension when they get here because of the reputation Sam Presti has. Right. I think it gears itself more towards that than the free agents. Okay, Nick, what were you going to say?
Oh, no, I was just agreeing. I mean, it's like the thing at work that if you're doing it right, it doesn't go noticed like it's supposed to be going right. But when it goes wrong, you hear about it. Same thing with the Thunder. You have to do this, and it's not going to be something that maybe benefits you that much. But if you don't do it, it's detrimental. So
totally agree. The Thunder are kind of like the Thunder front office is like the Chick-fil-A of the NBA. High quality service, my pleasure. The drive-through line is efficient AF. And then I don't know, maybe not recently, but in the past years, the Sacramento Kings are like the Popeyes chicken, right? Yes. They're going to cut you out and throw your food through your window.
Hang on. No, in this scenario, Popeyes is the Lakers. They do everything wrong, but the product is fantastic.
Burger King is the Kings. The Burger King.
Burger King.
The Kings are Burger King. Oh, God. Sure. No, I don't even know if I should say this on the podcast.
I love Whataburger.
I'm convinced that, no offense to anybody who listens to the podcast, if you work at Church's Chicken, I'm sure you work your ass off. But I'm convinced whenever you fill out an application at Church's Chicken, if you circle no on the question that asks that if you've ever been convicted of a felony, like they just throw your application in the trash. They only want like crazy convicted felons working there. My dad went to Church's Chicken the other day, and they said it was going to be like 40 minutes before they had chicken ready.
Oh,
like, what the hell, dude? That's like, it's
you're a chicken restaurant.
Church's Chicken. Like, why didn't you got chicken cooked? Holy
we
crap.
Got biscuits already.
I love that.
Yeah. Now I want to do a whole podcast where we compare NBA franchises to fast food restaurants.
Yes. Yep.
Right. That's a good pod idea for
that's
the
an off-season idea. Yeah. Idea.
Yeah.
Store it in the uncontested file. We'll get to it later. A few more things before we move on to around the association, guys. First, we don't have to talk a lot about this, but Gabriel Deck is in Oklahoma City. We had someone in the comments say something about churches. I thought they were going to say I work at churches. So at least they didn't say that. That's good. But Gabriel Deck is in Oklahoma City. Actually, on their Instagram today, he is boarding the plane, which means he's not quarantined away from the other players. So I wonder if he's playing soon. I would assume if he's in quarantine,
tomorrow
he ain't getting on
or
the team
Tuesday?
playing with all the players.
So I mentioned it on my post-game show that there was some Gabriel Deck fan account on Twitter that tweeted that he was getting his second COVID test after arriving in Oklahoma City.
Yep, I saw that.
And that was interpreted via Google Translate. So who knows the accuracy, but I took that to mean okay, he's been here and he's getting close. And I believe
he flew in earlier this week, maybe. But if he's boarding the team plane, they're not isolating him on the plane, I think he's good to go.
Per Nick, when he was in those, I guess, whatever, post-game interviews, Dignault said he's ready to throw him in there, right?
Yeah, it sounds like when he does play, it's going to be, your 15, 20, 25 minutes almost immediately.
Wow.
Interesting. I wonder how much English he can speak.
Hey, he's wearing number 6 for the Thunder. I just saw.
Shout out, Homie.
That's right.
Just change Diallo to Deck.
Could you get a more polar opposite player than Hamidou Diallo and Gabriel Deck?
No kidding.
Deck has really no athleticism. Just a completely different style of player. That's going to be fascinating.
Yeah.
Maybe we see Deck over the next couple of days.
Monday's game or Tuesday's game. It'll be
and Charlie Brown Jr.
Charlie Brown.
Yes.
Insert the Peanuts joke here. I think that's required, right? I have not seen a tweet today about Charlie Brown Jr. that is not a Peanuts joke. So
I'm sure he loves that.
Yeah, I'm sure he's never heard these before in his life. No one's ever made a Peanuts joke to him.
Someone's going to ask him in media availability, guaranteed, and it's going to be awkward.
It's Barry Trammell. Barry Trammell is going to be the one to do it. I have no doubt in my mind. No, Nick. Who's it going to be? Nick.
Yeah, that's not my guess either.
I'm not going to throw it out here on live TV, but I know exactly who it's going to be.
I think Nick and I have the same guess.
Yeah. I think I know who you're talking about.
Yep.
It's going to be Nick.
Yes.
Will not be me.
Nick,
do it.
I'll buy you Church's chicken if you do it.
I'd like to keep my credential.
Oh, Pluckers. Yes.
I'll buy you.
I will buy you as much as you can eat from Pluckers if you ask how his girlfriend what's her name? Peppermint Patty. Yeah, ask him how his girlfriend Peppermint Patty is doing now that he's got a 10-day. I will buy you all the Pluckers you can eat.
I'm good on that one.
I'll buy you a Pluckers franchise.
Okay, now we're kind of talking. Now we're talking.
13-game losing streak. I think we all agree that it's going to go to 14 against the Philadelphia 76ers and probably break the record at 15 against the Boston Celtics. The real question is, are they going to win another game before the season's over? And we've said that tongue in cheek and joked around they're going to go on a 20-game losing streak into the offseason. But I'm done kind of joking around about it now. And I think it's a serious question. If I put the over-under at 1.5 games won for the rest of the season, where are you guys standing right now?
I'm going over. But if you put it at 3.5, I'm probably going under.
3.5 is crazy high.
Not happening.
They haven't won 3.5 games since Christmas. Jesus.
But you have the Sacramento Kings and we have multiple games against them and the Warriors. Yep. Kings without De'Aaron Fox, at least for hopefully a short
maybe
period.
One of those games. Yeah, maybe one of those games will be with
3 games against the Kings in the last stretch is what makes me pause.
That's what's brutal. That's what I'm thinking. And I don't know. The Celtics have been weird. There's some weird stuff that happened tomorrow.
They're not going to lose to the Warriors.
They're not going to lose. They're not going to win between now and the next time we podcast. Their next 5 games are all so. The Pelicans, maybe the Pacers, maybe, but they play Sixers, Celtics, Suns. No,
I'd say
Not at all.
Pacers is a
Yeah.
maybe, the ones against the Kings, but like outside of that, somebody asked me this question last night and I went through the schedule and that was kind of where I netted out. Like maybe Pacers, maybe one
Maybe
of those
Kings.
three against the King. I think the wild card with the Kings is like those games that are right at the tail end of the season. Like what are the Kings doing? Does it become another tank fight like we had with Detroit? And in which case, yeah, you could easily win one of
But-
those.
Still, even in those tank fights, they played against the Pacers C team.
Yeah.
The Pacers
Yeah.
started
Right.
some dude that just came off a 10-day,
Yeah.
Yep.
Right.
and he
Well,
scored
we'll be
20-something points.
We'll be starting Charlie Brown by then. So
The craziest part is that
Gabriel Deck.
is Vegas had Oklahoma City at 22.5, and 2 weeks ago we were like blowing that out of the water, and now it's like, oh my gosh,
That's
They
are
might
they
not
going to
get
be
there.
spot on?
Yeah.
Vegas
It's,
always knows.
yeah,
they're
Vegas
at
always
20
knows
wins
that.
right now.
It is
Goodness.
wild. Yeah, I think 1.5. I think is actually a really good over under. I really think it is. I don't know where I put it
That's
at, guys.
tough, man. It's
I know.
wild.
I know, like they can't even like mess around and like. I mean, they tried to. Was it in Indiana where they got that steal in the 3 in like the final 10 seconds,
Yeah.
and I was like,
Yes.
are they really going to do this right now? And then they didn't, thank God. But I mean, they're like that Detroit team that they played was awful.
Oh, it was
You know?
terrible.
Like it was
All
so
these teams
bad.
that they have played for the most part are not fantastic until
You know, and it's like they keep
Celtics-
it close in the first quarter,
Celtics,
and then it's
Sixers.
just like they get boat raced. So
Yep.
I don't
It's
know.
beautiful.
It's going to be fascinating if they can go on like a legit like 25 game losing streak into the offseason. Here's the thing. I'm only okay with that if they get like the third best odds. If
Yeah.
we go on a 25 game lose streak and we're still at the fifth best odds, that's a problem, right?
Yeah,
Because
that's fair.
I'll be honest, I've been like box score watching the Orlando Magic, and they are god awful.
Oh, speaking
Like,
of which,
they
they
are
just
bad.
let's
They,
see.
they lost tonight against the Pacers.
Yeah, I was gonna say I had a notification.
Yeah,
about
and
that. Yeah.
Cleveland nearly beat the Wizards today, and then crapped it away in like the final 5 minutes. That would have been a good win
Yep.
for the Thunder tank as well. So, all right.
Mhm.
Well, hey, speaking about the tank,
Mm.
let's do everyone's favorite part of the podcast, the tank meter.
Loser! You're a loser!
And that means that the number 1 pick in the NBA draft goes to
All right, Nick. Where's the tank meter at? Full means they are full on tanking. They are trying to lose and get that number 1 pick. Empty means that they are gunning for the playoffs. If we're not all at full, I'm going to question your mental capacity. Maybe you should go be on another Thunder podcast that's very anti-tank. But Nick, where's the tank at?
I said 2 weeks ago when Shea was going to get reevaluated that the only thing that could push them to full was if they continue that him being sidelined, and they did that. They framed it as a setback with the foot thing. So I'm gonna have to stick with what I said, and I'm gonna full tank.
Yeah, he has a setback, and they have to wait 2 more weeks as we actively watch him put up shots in pregame warmups. Right?
Yeah.
If you have plantar fasciitis, I don't think you're out on the basketball court shooting jump shots. So, all right, Taylor,
That's
where are
a
you
good
at?
point. Oh yeah, like seeing Pressie's out of gas on I-40 right now. didn't even make it to the gas station.
Not Taylor, Justin, I saved you for last because you
geez.
have now set the precedent on this podcast
Yep.
that we need some wild over-the-top story about how full the tank is. So the floor is yours.
So here's the problem with that is that it becomes harder to keep up with expectations. I don't have a story, however, I do have a metaphor. Y'all know much about oil tankers? Because
No.
I don't.
Yep,
but
I do.
Wikipedia does. Okay, I kind of like halfway expected maybe the oil boys, Taylor and Nick, potentially. So did you know the world's largest oil tanker is named the Seawise Giant?
No,
And it fully laden, this is a quote from Wikipedia because I'm not fully sure what it means and I don't want like oil tank nerds in my mentions. Fully laden
You'll get energy
its
finance Twitter out.
displacement, it recorded the greatest dead weight tonnage ever at 657,019 tons
Oh my
of
gosh.
oil.
That's insane.
And
Is this like a boat or a truck or what is this?
It is
what
the
type of-
heaviest-
It's like
This
a
is
giant vessel.
This is on
it
the
is
sea,
the
man.
heaviest self-propelled ship of any kind. So think about like those
That's
giant
a
cruise ships
ridiculous
you
amount
see.
of. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. It
How
is
many tons again?
incapable. Hang on, I'm not done. It is incapable of navigating the English Channel, the Suez Canal, or the Panama Canal. I felt like this was timely given Canal Gate that we just all went
Yes.
through. It is considered the largest self-propelled ship ever built. So if you imagine that bad boy filled with, what did I say, 657,000 tons.
That's
the
over
Thunder
half a
tanker.
million tons. A ton is 2,000 pounds. I don't teach
yeah.
math, but holy shit.
That is
Hey, Justin, me and Nick are going to need you to give us the equivalent in barrels.
I can't do that. But that is the Thunder tank right now. Like it, what you just said of like, Nick, how we were talking about like, oh, the Thunder are going to blow through their win total. And now we're like, nah, they're not going to win a game for the rest of the season. Like that's the most impressive pivot since that boat got out of the canal.
Yep.
And I think that what they're doing right now is unbelievable, and it's put them in a position that I didn't think was possible. So all hail the Seawise giant.
This has become Justin's
Sea-wise
segment.
giant. Let's
I love it so much. It's my highlight. Good
Thank
stuff.
you.
What? I just typed it into Google and it said Seawise giant sinking. If
Whoa.
that thing sunk, the earth is screwed,
Now we're
man.
talking. We have a sinking tank.
That's for
We
next
are in
week.
good shape.
When the Thunder beat the Pacers,
That's
the
an
Nets,
automatic cave.
That's a big old boat.
That's a Cade and maybe a Kaminga.
Yeah, that's a big old boat, boys. Oh my gosh. It
It's
is
a long boy.
larger than the Empire State Building.
Yeah.
Oh my
There you go.
goodness.
The Uncontested
Hell
Oil
yeah.
Tanker podcast.
I'm into it, man. That is insane. All right. Well, before we get to questions in the chat, before Taylor takes us on, I need to make a sounder for like a don't read the comments, but then we read the comments. But before we
That would
get
be
there,
good.
Taylor is going to share my screen,
Got it.
and we're going to do a Tankathon
Oh,
sim
yes.
live
Awesome.
on the pod. You guys
like
ready
it.
for this?
Ready.
I'm nervous.
I know, dude. I always get nervous every time I hit this button. I tweeted
Hey,
this
I had
earlier
a
this week. I
great
asked Thunder fans
run
how
earlier.
many. I asked Thunder fans how many times they hit this button daily. It's a lot. Like the OKC Thunder fan base is single-handedly keeping Tankathon afloat right now. I think. Here we're gonna burn down the server in June. It's gonna happen.
Yes,
All right,
it's
here we go.
amazing.
Woo!
Oh yes.
And this
Yeah.
Tankathon sim,
2
the
and
Oklahoma
5.
City Thunder get
Oh.
2 and 5. That's what an Evan Mobley and a Jonathan Kuminga.
Yes, sir.
I'm into it.
That makes me tingly.
I know.
Makes
Makes me
feel
tingly
things.
too.
Beautiful.
It makes Tony Bradley a free agent.
Yeah.
it does.
Well,
Or Moses, I don't know.
Sorry about you. All right, Taylor,
Bye.
take us through the comments.
All righty, so we have a lot, but I actually
Oh, that's
my
good news.
computer restarted, so I only have like half of these. So we're just gonna take it from.
so if you got your
about 20
questions
minutes
in
ago.
early, like you
Get them
were,
in again right now. Yeah.
So continue to if you guys have some from earlier, be sure to throw them in at the bottom. I'll get them. M Webb, first one, starting us off. I bet even if we fall outside the top 5, that there is a 100% chance that we will trade up. I don't think there is any way Presti would tank a season this hard without getting a blue chip prospect. Do you all agree?
I think he's going to try very, very, very hard to trade up. But I think what Nick's head shaking is alluding to is I don't know if you can get in the top 5 if you're
Yep.
outside of it.
Yep. Spot on. It's like it's
Yeah.
not like years past where pick 7 and 16 get you to 5. Like I don't even know if 7 and 16 get you to 6.
Yeah.
Well, I bet they can get you to 6. I don't think they get you to 5, though. I think after you get past 5, I think this draft gets blown wide open.
It does.
So-
There's
yeah.
like a magic force field around the top 5 that I think is going to be real tough to crack. If anyone could crack it, it's the Thunder, but I don't know.
Sam Presti is a wizard. Just cast
true.
anti-force field magic on it.
The last 5 NBA superstars they got traded. The package was 5 to 8 picks and pick swaps. Why give up 3 to 5 picks to move into the top 5 when you could save those for 2 years from now and get you a superstar to pair with the guys? It just doesn't make sense, this year.
That's fair.
So we have a fairly similar, at least on the same note here from Marcus Kruger. There is a good chance that OKC will end up with a top 5 pick, which would be OKC's 14th, 20th pick, Miami's 32nd, 35th, and 55th pick. What does Presti do with those last 4 picks?
That's fascinating. The OKC Blue might be really fun to watch next year.
Yeah, right. Just because you can't really draft them all. I mean, you can, but
I'll tell you what he'll do. He's going to draft a bunch of people that I've literally never heard of, like he does every year.
See, this is where I could actually see 32, 35, and 19 to get to like 14.
right.
Mhm.
I agree.
That I
with you,
could see.
I agree.
That's a good point.
And again, Presti isn't just randomly like pulling off trades to see what he can make happen. Like he is getting everything mapped out, laid out. Like, is it trade 19, 32, and 35 to get 14, trade 14 and 7 to get and a future pick to get 4, something like he's mapping all of that out. It's like it's not 3D chess. It's like some weird futuristic space chess.
Future.
Yeah, stuff that you've never heard of before, where people, I don't know, it's just he's going to do something wild, right?
Yeah.
Like, and he's very meticulous. He's going to plan all of that out.
So Nate Sanders, again, all these are kind of like looking forward next season, which I like. Similar topic. Do you guys think Shea will be willing to give his ball handling duties to a Suggs, a Cade? Nate added a Scotty Barnes, but I'm not sure. I don't know about that one as much, but like a primary ball handler, like a Suggs or a Cade Cunningham.
I think it'd be split, right?
Right. That's so what. Yeah.
I think you're obviously giving up possessions, but I don't think it's just going to be like, okay, Cade, you have the ball every possession now, and Shea's an off-ball player.
Yep.
I don't think that's happening.
We saw it already some this season. We saw it a lot last season with Chris Paul. I think that not exactly, I'm not saying that Cade Cunningham's going to walk into the NBA and be Chris Paul, but I think that dynamic and how they play together, I think we've kind of seen the blueprint. I think it'll be similar to that.
I agree. We have one from our guy Silver. Did you guys see the post from Shea on Instagram? Basically, there was an Instagram post from Shea where he's posting up in some large tower, which seems to be downtown.
Vast, yeah.
That's what I was gonna say. Was it?
I think that's a few floors above your office, Taylor.
Well, I'm about to be closer. Side note, we're moving up to 38 here in a week. Anyways, yes, now everybody knows where I work. I just realized it's okay. Did you guys see the post from Shea? Basically, Shea is up what appears to be vast or something similar, where he's overlooking the OKC skyline. He tags OKC. He has a Drake lyric, 305 to my city. I get it. Anyways, for the I too like Drake. It's pretty cool though to see
Drake was
him.
one of his favorite rappers, I think.
Yeah, makes sense.
Duh, Canada.
Yeah.
I know.
But so he obviously does his typical Shea post. He also looks very angry, which is like a complete aside, but called it his city. And in the I think it was the last picture, he was next to Lou, and look, there's other people with him, probably some other Thunder players. Basically, Shea is calling OKC his city, his home. He expects to be here long term. And you know what, Silver? I'm all about it. I think I just answered that question for everybody.
I think we need a new segment where Taylor dissects social media posts.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Taylor.
So Shea was wearing a new pair of Jordans. He's actually dropped in the sneaker app last week.
That's
Hey,
called
Taylor, I don't know if you know
League
this, but
Fits.
Justin was joking.
I like
Build the statue. Build the statue. I'm ready.
A lot of comments. Bad podcasting. Okay.
Hey,
we have
Shea
a ton
said
of
it's
comments.
Shea said it's his city. Shea is actually just as tall as the city mayor. So Maybe there's something to it. I don't know.
They should go 1-on-1.
My man, Mayor Holt, solid 6'5". Whenever we interviewed him I interviewed him very early on for the Uncontested. Do you guys remember that?
I do remember that, and he did a great job.
And I was like, "Holy shit, Mayor! Like the Thunder need a small forward."
You promised him that all of us were going to read his book and do a podcast about it. And,
Why'd you have to bring that
and
up?
we totally did it. I was going to,
we will read his book, and then we'll get him back on.
There you go. Okay, so here is we got two more. Silver again. This is a fun one. Who's more watchable? Who's the most watchable player between Dort and Poku?
Poku,
hands down.
Straight entertainment.
I agree.
He is a magnet for my eyeballs.
He's so fun. Like I said, even his mistakes are fun.
Like
and
that
then
meme where the guy's looking back.
Enolia, yes, exactly. With holding up Dort's hand and looking back at Poku, 100%. Enolia, Sifa. What type of players are we looking for next year?
Note to
Good
self,
ones.
we already knew this, but don't let Taylor read names.
Oh, Sofa. Is that
We're
now?
so sorry, Emilio.
Taylor, if you're watching if you're watching on the live stream, you can see this. Taylor went,
You see me squinting. Like
they're looking for good ones. Possible
Yeah.
superstars. I don't think you're looking for
forwards.
I think at this point though, Nick, right? Like position doesn't matter. You just take best available. Yeah.
Agreed.
I think
no
you
doubt.
do that
Yeah.
every draft.
No doubt.
But
Yep.
very good. Real quick, I want to bring this one up again. Elijah asked, because we did the mock sim from Tankathon and got 2 and 5. Elijah said, "You keeping those or trading them for number 1?" You guys are all team keep them, right?
oh yeah, keep them. If you get 2 and 5 or like 2 and 7, oh yeah.
I don't think you could trade them if you wanted to.
And that's the other thing.
Yeah, that's a close one. I'm team get pick number 1, man. I'm riding that train to the end. If you got pick number 1, you could get 2 and 5 if you want. Easy, right? I don't know.
If one team has 2 and 5, it's easy.
True.
That's
Yeah.
hard in theory.
Yeah.
But yes, I get your point. Yeah.
Yeah,
Killed his name. I don't know if killed means good or bad. Is this a good kill?
Yeah, I think it's a bad kill.
I think that was
I think
really
it is
bad.
very much a bad kill.
But it made him laugh, and that's what matters.
You did LOL.
Leave it to Taylor to.
Oh,
Hey,
yeah.
Taylor, at least
There it
you're
is.
not as bad. At least you're not as
As
bad
Michael
as
Cage.
Michael Cage.
I might be as bad, if we're being completely honest.
We should get Michael.
I would
Dude,
say signal.
I want to get Michael Cage on the podcast and do a segment where
my
we give
gosh.
him and Taylor, we show them the spelling of a name and make them pronounce it.
Make them pronounce
Or Shaq.
Yes.
yes.
That
we
would be
all
the
have to
best
pronounce
segment
it
of
the
all time.
same.
Yeah,
But it's
or
incorrect.
Shaq.
Alexis Pokaseveskers.
Alexej Pokasevsky.
So good. So good. All right. We need to get around the association, gentlemen.
I don't even know where you're sitting at. Like.
You know, I hope the Thunder do keep drafting Eastern European players just so we can listen to Taylor on the podcast. It's just going to give us years and years of content.
Yes.
All right, guys, around the association this week, I have a game for us. We are going to play fact or fiction. In this game, very simple, I'm going to give one of you a statement. You are going to tell me if that statement is fact or fiction and why. So let's play the sounder and get started. Got to get some X-Files going on. Is it fact or fiction? Justin, you get the first one. Here we go. In a second, once I get my list pulled up.
So
The current play-in teams are set. Their seeding might change, but the 4 play-in teams in the East and the West are who are going to be there come the end of the season. Do you want that list?
I was just pulling it up.
I can give you the list. Here we go.
So okay, yes.
Oh, do you have it?
Give me the list. Give the listeners the list.
The list for the West is the Portland Trailblazers, Memphis Grizzlies, San Antonio Spurs, and Golden State Warriors. The list for the East is the Miami Heat, Charlotte Hornets, Indiana Pacers, Washington Wizards.
Okay. Starting with the West, I still think the Pelicans have a shot at it because my most tinfoil hat conspiracy is that the plan was solely created to get Zion in the playoffs, and I'm standing by
Okay.
that in year 2.
Pelicans are 4 games out of the 10 seed right now.
Yeah,
With
it's
like
a
12
stretch,
to go.
but I'm putting on my Adam Silver conspiracy hat, and I'm saying that something mysterious to our X-Files theme is going to happen, and we're going to see Zion in the playoffs.
Which of those 4 West teams are dropping out?
I'm gonna go.
Spurs.
That's exactly what I was gonna say. I'm gonna
You
go
say
with the
Spurs?
Spurs. Yes.
What if it's the Trailblazers, who are 2-8 in their last 10?
The Trailblazers are skidding, but I think they still have a chance to like end up at 6 because I don't know. I just think that the Spurs are more of a what's the word I want to use here? Meh. Is that
Touché.
a good word?
Hey, DeMar DeRozan's been balling out, my guy.
Yeah, he has been balling out. Shouts
He's
to
been playing some
DeMar.
basketball.
In the
Okay, so what about the East?
What was it? Heat, Hornets, Pacers, Wizards.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm sticking with those. The Wizards are on the rise. I don't think that's gonna change. The Pacers, I think
Bradley Beal had an injury this evening. Apparently, it wasn't his Achilles. I did that on purpose. Longtime listeners will understand. But nevertheless, he did have an injury. So hopefully it's nothing serious. A lot of soft tissue going on.
Okay, well,
probably.
pending the Wizards Beal injury, I'm gonna say they're not falling out. So I think the East is set.
All right, so you are going fiction on all 8 of those teams already being set.
Yes.
Okay. Nick, you get the next one. Fact or fiction? The Dallas Mavericks are more likely to end up with the 5th seed and the Lakers in 6.
So you're saying
Dallas
fiction, Dallas will be 5th?
Correct. And before you answer, I just want you to know, obviously, Anthony Davis is back. He is on a bit of a minutes crunch. LeBron James not back. Also, the Dallas Mavericks have the 2nd easiest schedule remaining with games against the Timberwolves, the Pistons, 2 against the Cavs, and 2 against the Kings.
I think it's fiction. I think that Dallas will end up 6, but hot take, I think you'd rather be the 6th than the 5 based on seeding.
I like that.
Touche. I like it. Taylor, next one is for you. Fact or fiction? This is a fun one.
Ooh.
The red hot New York Knicks will host a first round playoff series.
New York Knicks.
And they will win that series.
Oh.
They're going to host a playoff series and win it.
And they're going to win it. I'll
Fact
give you
or
the
fiction?
win. Oh, goodness. Sorry. I am typing in. Okay. Well, I checked it earlier and I can't remember off the top of my head. I think
they are in 4th. They're in 4th right now. They do have home court right now. They are tied.
And they are tied
with the Atlanta Hawks.
That's what it is. The Hawks. Oh, that's so tough because the Hawks have been pretty solid. I'm going to go with yes. I think they're going to host because they've been great and they're super fun. Julius Randle's been on a tear, obviously. Quickly's awesome. And everybody else just seems to be falling into place. Let's go with yes. They're going to host a first round series, and I think they're going to win it. I think they'll move on to the second round. I'll give you fact.
Nice. I like it. Yeah, if you guys haven't listened to the Woj pod with Julius Randle yet,
that was great.
It's a must listen. It's really, really, really good. Justin, Nikola Jokic wins the 2020-2021 NBA MVP this season.
Fact. Next question.
Easy
Well
enough.
done.
I like it. If Embiid had played the whole season, would it be more of a question?
Oh,
yeah. No, for sure. For sure. But right now, there's no argument, unless you're Brian Windhorst, there's no argument against Jokic.
Hey, look, my media brethren.
Brian Windhorst got drug.
Rightfully so.
I loved it so much.
Nick, the East 1v8 matchup in the playoffs will be the Nets versus the Wizards, meaning the Wizards will win the play-in and make it to the 8th seed. The Nets secure the 1 seed.
No, because if I'm not mistaken, I'm gonna say fiction. If I'm not mistaken, even if the Wizards get the 10 spot, they'd be playing either like Miami or Boston, likely, and that seems very tough.
You don't think they can win one against those guys?
They'd have to win 2 against.
Well, they
Yeah,
would have
against
to
Boston.
play against the 9, which is currently Indiana, and then they would play the winner of 7-8, which is currently Miami and Charlotte.
Yeah, I still don't know. That's tough. The bottom of the East is like maybe better than the middle of the East, which is just it just makes it tough.
Yeah.
Mhm. Okay, so you're going fiction. Taylor, Western Conference teams prefer to play the Suns in the playoffs in place of either LA team, Utah, and Denver.
Either
The Suns
LA
are the
team-
most the Suns are the most preferred opponent for Western teams in the playoffs.
Ooh,
They'd rather play the Suns than either of the LA teams, Utah or Denver. Is that fact or fiction?
I'm
People
going
see the
fiction
Suns
right
as
off
the
the
easiest
bat,
route.
and Clippers fans will probably come after me, but I just don't trust Paul George in the playoffs.
I love it. Yes.
I don't trust Kawhi. Yes, but like who else? I know they've been playing well. Can those guys stay healthy? Are you really going to rely on like Reggie Jackson being a primary ball handler? Pat Beverly, sure, he'll defend, but they just don't really have that point guard, even though Reggie Jackson's kind of quote unquote stepped up over recent weeks. I'd rather play the Clippers than any of those teams right now if I'm a Western Conference playoff contender.
I like it. Justin, fact or fiction? The 3 current teams with the best lottery odds, which are Houston, Minnesota, and Detroit, are the same teams that will be in those positions come the end of the season.
I think
Or
that's
does-
a fact. Those feel
That's a
locked
good
to
one.
me. I don't know that anybody's breaking through that bunch. However, I bet only one of those end up in the top 3 in the actual lottery.
Ooh, I like it.
That's
For
good.
reference, Orlando at 4 is only a half game out of the 3 seed. Oklahoma City at 5 is 2.5 out of the 3 seed. And then Cleveland is 3.5 out. That feels like way too much of a mountain to climb.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
Nick,
Man,
James Wiseman is playing for the Golden State Warriors at the start of the 2021-22 season. Fact or fiction?
Fact. They're so damn high on him. Steve Kerr's made comments that like Wiseman's as untradeable as Steph. Whether that's the right thing to do, I don't know. But do I think he'll be there? Yes.
Okay. I like it. Taylor, you get the final fact or fiction of the night. The only way that
is
the
Lou
Portland
Dort
Trail-
the next LeBron? Fact.
the only way the Portland Trailblazers can be successful is by significantly altering their roster. By significantly, I mean like
Trade
a
CJ.
CJ trade or a Nurkic trade. I'm not talking these moves on the peripherals, right?
So you're talking by successful, like we're defining that as a championship, or they're in the finals.
Or they're getting home court advantage and they're not in the play-in tournament.
Ooh, okay. Yeah. That's tougher because we've seen them do that, although it was strange season here 2 years ago, or what it seems like 5 years ago.
Yeah, it does.
If I'm defining success as like you're a championship contender, you're in that top, like you're in the same tier as the Utah Jazz and the Denver Nuggets are as we currently sit presently, then I'm going fact. I do think they need to make some pretty significant changes there to basically maximize Dame's prime. And I think that probably starts with trading CJ, although I don't know if Dame will want that. So, I mean, again, it's a tough situation.
What comes first, a CJ or Nurk trade or Terry Stotts firing?
Oh, Terry Stotts, 100%. His seat is a blazing right now.
I think I would agree. They have not been good. You read anything that the beat writers of the Trailblazers write, and it is doom and gloom.
Yeah.
It's very, very poor. Besides that Western Conference Finals run, have they made it out of the first round in like the past 8 years?
Oh,
Am I misremembering this? I don't remember them making it out of the first round, save for that run against when they obviously hit the shot against Oklahoma City, and then they beat Denver in 7, and then played the Dubs in the Western Conference Finals.
You're right.
Before that, wasn't it the Dame shot against Houston, which was like whenever LaMarcus Aldridge and Nicola Batum were still on that team. So
It been that bad?
that's what it feels like. I
They
could be
won-
misremembering.
I'm looking it up here. They lost to the Warriors in 15-16 that season that we all remember. And then they, same thing, lost to the Spurs 4-1 2013-14. So three trips out of the first round since before that gets way worse. Three trips out of the first round since the year 2000.
Ooh.
I'm telling you, man. All right, gentlemen. Well, that's all I have for Round the Association. Before we log off of here, do the Thunder win a game this week?
No.
Ooh.
Yes.
I think they
which
need
one,
to.
Nick?
They're going to win the Philly game tomorrow.
Ooh. I like it.
Boy.
I was going to say Celtics.
Joel is questionable. Tobias is questionable. Ben is out. I think the Sixers might take him too lightly and accidentally get beat.
Interesting. We will see. I've got them winning 0 games this week. Solid 0.
That would be ideal.
All right. Well, hey, if you guys joined us in the stream tonight, thank you so much. We appreciate you being active in the chat. It always brings a smile to our faces. If you're listening to the podcast version, shout out to you, man. We appreciate you so much. The podcast is now over, so pause it and go drop that 5-star rating. Write a quick little blurb about what you enjoy of our podcast. Helps other people see it. Helps the Uncontested get more ears. So we would greatly appreciate that. We are back with you again in about 24 hours after the conclusion of the Thunder versus Philadelphia 76ers game. Nick will be live on the Locker Room app, breaking down that game, answering your questions, bringing you guys up on stage, and then it will immediately be in podcast feeds afterwards. And then the next night, we're back at it again after the Thunder take on the Boston Celtics. Make sure you follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Subscribe to our channel on YouTube. Have a great beginning of your week. Thunder up right now, I feel like, is Thunder down because we want those losses for that lottery pick. So until next time, and as always, Thunder down.